What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Runaway Train Sports Podcast, or should I say a late edition of the Runaway Train Sports Podcast. I'm recording this a few days late as just got too busy over towards the end of the weekend, but we're here now, and we're going to talk about Purdue's game against the Ohio State Buckeyes quickly, and then we're going to actually touch a little bit on college basketball, because the fact that this was recorded late means that we have the AP Top 25 for the preseason of the 2023-24 Big Ten and National College Basketball season. So we're going to touch on that as well. But we're going to start with Purdue's game against Ohio State. And as always, I am your host, Dakota, or Boiler in Texas on most social media platforms. And if you have not already and you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single upload. We do a post-game reaction every Monday, supposedly, if you ignore this one, and a pre-game every Friday. It's late. I'm sorry. I apologize. So we have a couple of things, and when basketball season comes around, I'm sure we'll increase the number of videos as needed. But let's jump into Purdue's game against Ohio State. We won't touch on it for very long because I think a lot of us kind of have already taken the conclusions from this game that we should have. Purdue falls 41-7 in this one, in a game that really nothing could go right for Purdue. Purdue missed 3 field goals on the day, which realistically could have meant that, Purdue at minimum is putting up, you make all 3 field goals and you're looking at a minimum 16 points, which even though it is only 16 against 41, it still feels a whole heck of a lot better. But this was just a day where Ohio State, obviously, very clearly the better team here. I don't think any of us are too surprised by that. This is definitely not the Purdue team to take down Ohio State at home. Not to say it won't be eventually, but on this day, it just wasn't to be, especially with weather rolling in late, kind of really limiting what Purdue was able to do on offense. And on defense, actually, I think Purdue did fairly decently. The problem being just that it's Ohio State. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. and company, and at the end of the day, that really is all they needed. Purdue did have a couple of opportunities to say, as Ohio State was missing their top 2 or 3 running backs by the end of this one. The starting running back for Ohio State in this one, Chip Trainum, actually ended up leaving fairly early-ish. I believe it was in the second quarter. I can't remember exactly, or it might have been late first quarter. He took a shot from Dylan Thieneman, and I believe was probably held out for concussion more than anything, but it was a tough day. Let's quickly just run down the stats. Kyle McCord starting the game for Ohio State, finished 16 of 28 for 276 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's basically all they really needed him to do. Ohio State kind of just sat on Purdue all day. Devin Brown also got in on the action, 1 of 2 for 58 yards and a touchdown. That's what you would call fairly productive, to say the least. On the ground, Ohio State ran for 39 carries, 152 yards as a team, led the way by Dallin Hayden, 11 for 76 and 1. The other touchdown being by Devin Brown. He came in a lot in the red zone and kind of was just used as a rushing quarterback more than anything. In the receiving game, Marvin Harrison Jr. obviously leads the way. 6 receptions, 105 yards, 1 touchdown. I think he had the first touchdown of the game. And then kind of really just took it easy. That's all you really need to do when you're Marvin Harrison Jr. Still racked up over 100 yards. Very productive day for him. Brandon Ennis, one reception for 58 yards and a touchdown. That one was a bit tough. Kate Stover, tight end, 4 for 53 and 2. And that was pretty much all she wrote. This was a tough one. A positive side for Purdue as we move towards defense. Actually, Purdue won the turnover battle 2-0. Ohio State fumbled twice, and Purdue was able to recover both. And Purdue actually did not turn the ball over at all, which, if we're looking at it from as many positive lights as we can, we definitely have to mention that more than anything else. Other than that, Ohio State only had 3 sacks on the day, which I think it really just goes to show that the offensive line was doing its job fairly decently. Obviously not perfectly, but at the end of the day, what more can you really do against an Ohio State team with the amount of talent that they do? Quickly jumping over to Purdue side, Hudson Card, 13 for 32, 126 yards, 1 touchdown there in the fourth quarter. Not the best day for Hudson Card, not the best day for the offensive line. Really, this was a long day. This was a long day in West Lafayette if you're the quarterback or offensive line. In terms of rushing yards, Devin Mockabee eclipses 100 yards, 18 carries for 110 yards. I think I saw a stat that... Oh, what was it? A stat that basically was like that was the most rushing yards against Ohio State has allowed this season or something like that. So if you're really looking for the silver linings, which as we know I am the best at, that is definitely a positive spin that Devin Mockabee was able to get 110 yards against Ohio State with a long of 21. I mean, ideally, we'd like to see that one be bumped up a little bit more, but at the end of the day, what more can you really ask for? Dylan Downing also got in on the action, 11 carries for 18 yards. Not the best day for him. Deion Burks also got 1 for 6. So as a team, Purdue rushes for 123 yards and no touchdowns, but eclipsing 100 yards on a day like that really, I think, should be taken as a win more than anything. In the receiving game, Deion Burks catches Purdue's 1 touchdown. He had 3 catches for 20 yards. I mean, the touchdown was a quick slant, probably from like the 8 or 9 yard line. Definitely not the biggest numbers type of day, but we can say, again, we're rolling off these silver lining takes and these silver lining moments. The appearance of Mershawn Rice, my guy, kind of appeared out of nowhere. I believe it was in the second half and had 3 catches for 50 yards, leads the team for that. He had a couple of really nice yards after catch, catch and goes. It was really nice to see him kind of get in and have a fairly productive day against an Ohio State defense that was holding Purdue at arm's length most of the way. So hopefully that can be a good jump start for him going into the rounding out the season, as Purdue's going to need as many weapons as they can get for receivers. And if they can get a guy like him to come out, make some catches, get some good yards after the fact, definitely not going to complain too much about that. TJ Sheffield, also a fairly productive day. I say fairly productive. He had 2 for 24. And then Garrett Miller, 2 for 10. This was, we're going to be rolling through this very quickly. Just continuing down, like I said, Purdue won the turnover battle. They recovered 2 fumbles. Yanni Karlaftis and Kajan Jenkins each recovering 1. For the defensive numbers, Purdue finished the game with 3 sacks and 6 tackles for loss. Getting 3 sacks, equaling the sack totals between Ohio State and Purdue. Definitely not disappointed about that. Kajan Jenkins and Nick Scourton have been absolute monsters this year, and I'm really excited to see what they can do as the season continues on. Hopefully they can stay healthy and continue to provide. I think the only other big talking point that I kind of mentioned there at the beginning was the kicking situation. I say situation just because Ben Freehill, Purdue's starting place kicker, still injured, still out, and so he was replaced by Julio Macias. I think it's Macias. Tough day for him. You got to really feel for him, especially when kickers just have days like that where nothing seems to go right. He was 0 for 3 on kicks, including 1 absolute chip shot from the right hash that really was a backbreaker, to say the least. It kept Purdue off the board until the fourth quarter with a Deion Burks touchdown, and you really feel for the kid, but at the same time, oh man, it was tough to watch. And it's tough, especially when you run the field goal, the student field goal promotion during timeouts as well. But I think I saw there were multiple students who kicked, or there was at least one who kicked like a 40-yarder, or maybe even both kicked 40-yarder, which I think that became a pretty serious meme going around Purdue Twitter on game day when it's worse when you have a kicker on the team goes over 3 and you have some students come down from the stands and put a couple through. Definitely a tough day for Purdue special teams. Just a tough day all around. If you're going to talk about the 3 main points in this one, I think the first one you got to say is offensive line. Still extremely banged up, had multiple injuries in this one as well, some that really didn't look good. This is going to be the biggest test of the rest of this season, is what kind of performance can this offensive line put up when they are hobbled as all heck. Purdue definitely could not have gotten to the bye week at a better time. Just any opportunity to get healthier and take some rest for these guys is going to be huge. And hopefully, I haven't seen anything about the injuries as of yet, but I know some of them didn't look good, and we're getting thinner and thinner at Purdue's thinnest position for sure. Point number 2, let's go for I don't even really know. I didn't think about this at all beforehand. Point number 2, let's hold off on crucifying the kicking game until we get Ben Freehill back. I haven't seen anything about when he's planning on coming back, and I know he wasn't perfect going into the year or up until this point, but we definitely need to wait until he gets back before we make any sweeping judgments about the kicking game. I'm really struggling to come up with some things here. And 3, we'll just go with in general, the silver linings. I mean, if you look at things this game was not good. From start to finish, there were multiple things that really just weren't going Purdue's way. Unhelped by, I think, some timidness from Graham Harrell in the play calling. There were moments where I thought Purdue could have been more aggressive in situations, as well as we kind of returned to a bit of that less than productive play calling in certain situations that many of us had kind of grown tired of already. And especially when it's a game where you're down, 30 in the 20s to nothing, in the 30s to nothing, eventually like 41. This really was just a tough day to find those silver linings. And I did my best on Twitter, if you were around that on the day of, but people were just not having it, which I understand. It was a frustrating loss. And at the end of the day, they go out there to win games, and Purdue just did not look competitive at all, which for better or for worse, for people's expectations or not, that was the team that Purdue was going to put out there this year. And with the situations that we've got going on up and down the roster right now, that one was tough, and it's going to be tough. And we have to just expect that, understand it, and kind of, I think, just move on and look ahead. Purdue has a bye week next week, so there won't be a preview episode this week, but I'm debating on potentially doing a college basketball thing this week, or maybe waiting until the following week. I'm going to be actually out of town this weekend, so I'm kind of leaning towards no episode later this week. We'll see how I feel. If I have time, I might record just a Big Ten preview, just a general quick thing, no more than probably 10 minutes, but we'll see when we get there. But I think we talked enough about Purdue, Ohio State. I mean, we all saw it. And I think all of us would rather soon forget it and move on. Let's take a look around the rest of the Big Ten, the results that we had this week in the conference. Not a lot of really super exciting games outside of a couple. Indiana visited Michigan and lost 52-7. Although we do have to give them this, that they did in fact lead the Wolverines in the first quarter. They struck first and actually led at the end of the first quarter 7-0. Over a 21-point second quarter, a 17-point third quarter, and a 14-point fourth quarter, sealed it for Michigan here, 52-7. Obviously, Indiana, I don't think was expected to compete for too much, but hey, the fact that you led at the end of the first quarter, that's pretty good. Not a lot of teams have been able to say that so far this year, so good on you for that one, Indiana. But you kind of got the brakes blown off of you from there. Penn State hosted Massachusetts. I mean, Massachusetts is terrible. They won 63-0. Absolutely nothing could be taken from that game. We'll touch on Iowa, Wisconsin, just because while this was a close game, I don't think it was necessarily a fun game to watch. Kudos to you if you sat through the whole thing. I don't think I really could have. Iowa won 15-6, and that's kind of all we need to say about that. It was Iowa football, baby. Iowa football. If you don't like that, you don't like Iowa football. Rutgers, Michigan State. This one was a banger in the fourth quarter. Rutgers was trailing by 21 points in the fourth quarter before they rattled off 21. Or not, they weren't down by 21. They were down by, what is that? It was 24-6 before they rattled off 21 unanswered in the fourth quarter to win 27-24. Michigan State in absolute shambles. Rutgers, absolute banger of a finish. Obviously, you can't, explode for 21 unanswered in the fourth quarter for the win and not get a kudos from me. I mean, you're 5-2 in the East. Get one more bowl eligible. Absolutely banging year for Rutgers in the last year of divisions as we know it. So what a win. I mean, Michigan State's got to be feeling bad about that one, letting that one slip away. What a wild finish for sure. And I think in probably the most unexpected result of the weekend, Illinois 27, Maryland 24. Illinois wins on a last-second field goal to take down the Terps for only the second time this season. Maryland, Maryland fans, are you doing okay? Let me know down in the comments below how you're doing, because Illinois looks like they were literally wanted to do anything else than play football just a short couple of weeks ago. And then to let them walk into your crib and win on a walk-off is not the look you want to have, especially coming off a game where you played Ohio State relatively toughly, probably the closest big name team on the season so far, especially at Ohio State. To come home, a bit of a letdown game to say the least. Terps fall to 5-2 and 2-2 in the Big Ten. I mean, we're not saying that Maryland was going to compete in the East, but that we were not expecting them to give Illinois their first Big Ten win 7 games into the season. So what a surprising one. That one was actually a lot of fun to watch. Maryland, you could just tell was, I don't know if it was a hangover game from the Ohio State game, or maybe they just really overlooked Illinois. I don't know. Let's see. Let's do a bit of live checking. Oh, you can't even say they were looking ahead. I was going to say they could be caught looking ahead a little bit. They had a big game coming up, a lot of big names in the East, but they go to Northwestern. Not even next week. Maybe they do have a bye next week. So maybe they just got eyes up trying to go into the bye, stay relatively healthy and be bowl eligible on the way there. But no, Illinois comes in and says, thank you very much. I will take that from you, and steal a win in College Park. September, Maryland is done and over with. And, it's going to be tough sledding from here, I think, because Maryland has the bye. And then they host Penn State, which I think will be a fun atmosphere. But man, Penn State looks pretty good so far. But Maryland should be bowling this year. Obviously, they go to Northwestern, they go to Nebraska, and then they go to Rutgers. Wow, actually, their most winnable games are on the road. So who really knows what Terps we're gonna get? But there you go. That was the matchups for the Big Ten this past weekend. A couple of teams on bye. Purdue has their bye next week, along with Maryland and someone else I can't remember off the top of my head. Hopefully the games that are there are going to be a bit of a banger. Let's go ahead and shift now to quickly touch on the college basketball season, which is only a short couple of weeks away. I believe it's 2 weeks before Purdue's exhibition game against Arkansas. And today the AP poll came out for the first time for the preseason, and we're going to take a look at that. But first, actually, Ken Pom came out with their rankings a day or so ago, and Purdue actually comes in at number 1 in Ken Pom to start the season with an adjusted efficiency of 26.63 to the next closest, Kansas, at 26.31. They're showing as having the second-rated adjusted offense, but it must be to a smaller decimal than just the 10th place, because it looks like if you look at the number 1 rated offense, Gonzaga, they have the same. So there must be quite nothing in between there. So you can say Purdue probably has tied for the top adjusted offense. And they have the 14th rated adjusted defense, with Kansas having the top, Tennessee coming in at number 2. And then number 3 is in there somewhere. Iowa State, actually, number 3. See them down there at 31 overall. But Purdue tops the Ken Pom rankings to start the season. A lot of expectations going in for Purdue this year. We're going to touch on a lot more of those in our preseason video for Purdue basketball, but I figured we'd touch on these here a little bit in here and now. Obviously, we can do this in conjunction with the AP poll now. Kansas takes the top spot in the AP poll to start the season, getting 46 first place votes, followed up by the Duke Blue Devils at number 2, and then Purdue at number 3. I think this feels about right. I think it's where a lot of us expected to be. Although I personally probably would have put us at 2 over Duke. But, I mean, it's preseason, so you can't be too disappointed, I suppose. Michigan State comes in at number 4, just behind Purdue, to give us 2 Big Ten teams in the top 5. And then to round out the top 10, we have Marquette at 5, UConn at 6, Houston at 7, Creighton at 8, Tennessee at 9. And rounding out the top 10, the pollsters are not cowards. Florida Atlantic comes in at number 10 for, I believe, their highest preseason ranking ever. And I think I also saw that this is their highest ranking, period, ever. So definitely going to be a fun year for Florida Atlantic. Very similar to Purdue, they brought back pretty much everyone from a team that made the Final Four last year, much to everyone's chagrin, especially coming from Purdue's region. We're not going to talk about it. The other Big Ten team in the top 25, Illinois, coming in at number 25. And if you want to go into receiving votes, we have Wisconsin, which would effectively be at number 26, Maryland, which would be at 7, 8, 9 at number 30. And I believe Indiana is in here as well with 3 votes there towards the bottom. I'm not going to bother about doing the math. They have 1 more vote than the College of Charleston, which shows where they are at. But going to be a fun season for Purdue. Also, in the Ken Pom breakdown, I think they did, people have been posting the projected win totals or the wins for Purdue, going team by team down the order. And actually, Purdue is favored in every single regular season game that is currently scheduled. Obviously, Maui plays a bit of a part in that we don't know who Purdue is going to play post Gonzaga. And so no one really knows the predictions on those. But at least in terms of ones that we know Purdue is going to play, Purdue is projected to go undefeated on the regular season, which I think I also posted this on Twitter, that could you imagine the tension online amongst Purdue fans if Purdue managed to go the regular season undefeated? The last team to do that, obviously, Kentucky, more than a handful of years ago. But that is kind of it. That pretty much wraps up exactly what I wanted to talk about. Purdue is expected to compete near the top of the Big Ten. Michigan State also there to compete against the projected to be at the top of the Big Ten. If you want to look at Ken Pom projections for Big Ten Conference standings, it has Purdue projected to go 15-5, Michigan State to go 13-7. So if Purdue managed to beat this Michigan State team by 2 games in the Big Ten and win it outright at 15-5, I would be pretty happy. Illinois in third, 12-8. Wisconsin, 12-8. Maryland, 12-8. Ohio State, 11-9. Northwestern to go a beautifully balanced 10-10. Michigan, Indiana, Iowa, and Nebraska all projected to go 9-11. Rutgers, 8-12. Penn State, 6-14. And Minnesota, an astonishing 5-15. Minnesota not projected to be very good this season. But I think that will wrap it up for me here. Purdue's on a bye week for football. College basketball is only a few weeks away for those of you who have already checked out from Purdue football. But those of you who haven't, I guess I can also mention Purdue got a new verbal commit from a 4-star tight end that they had been going after pretty hard, Tavion Galloway. So very, very good off-season, very good recruit to pick up. It's late. I'm tired. I had to talk about Purdue versus Ohio State again. We'll be back again probably next week am I going to do a post? No, probably not. I'll do one pod next week to cover the games from the weekend before and then preview Purdue's next game on the schedule. And we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And then we'll also keep on the lookout for the preseason Purdue podcast. Man, I got to go to bed. I'm going to get out of here. I appreciate you guys. As always, you can find me on most social media platforms at Boiler in Texas. And as always, if you have not already subscribed on YouTube, head over to youtube.com/Boiler in Texas. You can find us there. Hit subscribe. It really helps us out as we continue pushing the content as this football season rounds out and basketball season is about to take over. You can find the podcast on most social media platforms at the Runaway Train Sports Podcast. We'll be back here in a week or so to cover more Purdue football as well as some Purdue basketball from there. But that'll do it for me here in this one. And as always, boiler up, hammer down, hail Purdue.